Trump reveals key pillars of his Trumponomics: low taxes, sky-high tariffs for the imports, Powell not fired, Treasury Secretary Dimon, and much more. Before the failed assassination attempt, before the catastrophic for Biden first presidential debate, Donald Trump gave Bloomberg an extensive interview in which he laid out the core tenets of Trumponomics 2.0 that will define his next presidency. Here are the key highlights. According to that interview, if Trump wins, he will enforce huge bilateral sanctions, even though he claims, I don't love sanctions. He says he keeps circling back to William McKinley, who he says raised enough revenue through tariffs during his turn of the 20th century presidency to avoid institutioning a federal income tax, yet never got the appropriate credit. He will allow Jerome Powell to serve out his term as chair of the Federal Reserve, which runs through May 2026. Will lower the corporate tax rate to as low as 15%, no longer plans to ban TikTok, considers Jamie Dimon to serve as Secretary of the Department of the Treasury, ambivalent if not outright hostile to the idea of protecting Taiwan from Chinese aggression and to the U.S. efforts to punish Putin for invading Ukraine. While the broad strokes of Trumponomics might not be different from what they were during his first term, what's new is the speed and efficiency with which he intends to enact them. He believes he understands the levers of power, much more deeply now, including the importance of selecting the right people for the right jobs. We had great people, he said, but I had some people that I would not have chosen for a second time, he said. Now I know everybody. Now I am truly experienced, he said. Maybe he is, or maybe he just is surrounded by better people. Here is the inner circle of the Trump economic policy advisors. In a world where everything else has been tried, he's pushed U.S. debt to stratospheric levels that virtually assure the U.S. will lose the dollar reserve status in coming years. Trump is betting that his unorthodox agenda of tax cuts, more oil, less regulation, higher tariffs, and fewer foreign financial commitments will appeal to enough swing state voters to hand him the election. And it's working. Debate and assassination attempt boosted aside. Recent polling has showed that Black and Hispanic men are shifting to the Republican Party as they tire of historically high prices for food, housing, and gas. As many as 20% of Black men now back Trump, while Biden is struggling to sell key voters to his catastrophic economic record, not to mention the panic over his age. While Trump is almost assured to win in November, according to the online prediction markets, many Democratic leaders are increasingly concerned he'll also deliver Republican control of the House and Senate along with the White House. A sweeping red tsunami. In such an outcome, Trump would have unprecedented leverage to shape the U.S. economy, the climate for global business and trade with allies for decades to come. But there is one hurdle. While the business leaders Trump would be working with prize stability and certainty, they did not get much of either in Trump's first presidency. This time around, his campaign is more professionally run, but he has not produced a detailed economic policy agenda to reassure them. The vacuum has generated confusion among those who are planning for a second Trump term. So Trump took advantage of the interview to set the record straight in some key items. The Fed, in late April, a few of Trump's foreign policy advisors leaked to the Wall Street Journal an explosive draft proposal to severely curb the independence of the Federal Reserve. It was inferred that Trump had endorsed the idea, which did not seem like a stretch given his prior attacks on Powell. In fact, the Trump campaign insisted he'd endorse neither the proposal nor the leak, and his top campaign brass were furious about it. But the episode was a consequence of Trump's still unformed policy, which has left workers from such think tanks as the Heritage Foundation battling to fill in the details and jockey for influence. Other conservative policy entrepreneurs have been pushing proposals to devalue the dollar or institution or institute a flat tax. At Mar-a-Lago, Trump makes it clear he's fed up with the unauthorized freelancing. There's a lot of false information, he complains. He's eager to set the record straight on severe topics. First, there's Powell, and while in February Trump told Fox News that he would not reappoint the Fed chair, now he states unequivocally that he'll let Powell finish his term, which would last well into the second Trump administration. I would let him serve it out, Trump said, especially if I thought he was doing the right thing. Even so, Trump has thoughts on interest rate policy, at least in the near term. The Fed, he warns, should abstain from cutting rates before the November election, and given the economy and Biden a boost, that would be a problem for the market that has already priced in not one but two rate cuts in the second half, the first of which is in September. It's something that they know they should not be doing, he said. Inflation. Trump has been ruthlessly critical of Biden's stewardship of the economy, but he sees, in an anger generated by high prices and interest rates, an opportunity the woo voters who typically don't support Republicans, such as black and Hispanic men. Trump said he'll bring down prices by opening up the U.S. to more oil and gas drilling. We have more liquid gold than anybody, he says, even though the tariffs he plans on implementing will certainly lead to higher prices for imported goods. A report from the Peterson Institute estimates that Trump's tariff regime would impose an additional annual cost of $1,700 for every middle-income family, and Oxford Economics estimates that Trump's combination of tariffs, immigration restrictions, and extended tax cuts could also increase inflation and slow economic growth. The through line of these policies, says Bernard Yaros, lead U.S. economist at Oxford Economics, is an increase in inflation expectations. Immigration. He believes harsh restrictions are key to boosting domestic wages and employment. He characterizes immigration restrictions as the biggest factor of all in how he would reshape the economy, with particular benefits for the minorities he's eager to win over. The black people are going to be decimated by the millions of people that are coming into the country, he said. They're already feeling it. Their wages have gone way down. Their jobs have been taken by the migrants coming in illegally into the country. Trump's language turns apocalyptic. The black population in this country is going to die because of what's happening. What's going to happen to their jobs, their housing, everything, he continued. I want to stop that, Trump said. Budget deficit. Trump's desire to renew his landmark 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act and to further reduce corporate taxes means that the budget deficit, having ballooned to war levels, will not shrink anytime soon, if ever. Coupled with the upward pressure on interest rates that economists expect from his protectionist policies, Trump's plans could exacerbate the country's growing debt burden. In the end, however, Trump's other positions could be enough to sway business leaders to his side. Harold Hamm, a Trump donor and the executive chairman of the oil giant Continental Resources, writes in an email, "There seems to be outright hostility to free markets in the Biden administration. As a result, capital is parked on the sidelines. Why? Because of regulatory uncertainty and in some cases downright regulatory hostility towards certain sectors." Ham cites the pause Biden put on liquefied natural gas projects in January as one example. When Trump is reelected, he predicts that capital that was parked on the sidelines will be unleashed once again. Treasury Secretary Dimon. It's not a secret that most Fortune 1000 CEOs have never been fans of Trump, but slowly the tide is turning overnight. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, announced he would donate $45 million every month to a Trump PAC. Expect many others to follow. But the biggest praise for Trump in recent months has come from a card-carrying Democrat CEO of the largest U.S. bank. Be honest, James Dimon said in the World Economic Forum in Davos in January, he was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. He grew the economy quite well. Tax reform worked. he was right about some of China. He was not wrong about some of these critical issues, and that's why they're voting for him. According to Bloomberg, Trump relishes the compliment. He's changing his view of the man he attacked on Truth Social last year as highly overrated, globalist Jamie Dimon, and now says he could envision Dimon as who's thought to be contemplating a political career as the Secretary of the Treasury. He is somebody that I would consider, Trump says. Tariffs and foreign policy. As president, Trump shattered the long-standing Republican orthodoxy of favoring free trade. He says he'll go further if reelected. To Bloomberg, he offered an impassioned defense of U.S. tariffs. He's been studying McKinley, dubbing him the tariff king, to make it clear he intends to ratchet up levies not on just China, but on the European Union as well. McKinley made this country rich, Trump said. He was the most underrated president. In Trump's reading of history, McKinley's successors squandered his legacy on costly government programs such as the New Deal and unjustly poisoned an important tool for economic statecraft. He says, I can't believe how many people are negative on tariffs that are actually smart, Trump said. Man, is it good for negotiation? I've had countries that were potentially extremely hostile coming to me and saying, sir, please stop with the tariff stuff. Taiwan, asked about America's commitment to defending Taiwan from China, which views the Asian democracy as a breakaway province. Trump makes it clear that despite the recent bipartisan support for Taiwan, he's at best lukewarm about standing up to China's aggression. Part of his skepticism is grounded in economic resentment. Taiwan took our chip business from us, he says. I mean, how stupid are we? They took all of our chip business. They're immensely wealthy, Trump said. What he wants is for Taiwan to pay us, the U.S., for protection. I don't think we're any different from an insurance policy. Why? Why are we doing this, he asks. Another factor driving his skepticism is what he regards as the practically difficulty of defending the small island on the other side of the globe. Taiwan is 9,500 miles away, he says. It's 68 miles away from China. Abandoning the commitment to Taiwan would represent a dramatic shift in U.S. foreign policy, as significant as halting support for Ukraine, but Trump sounds ready to radically alter the terms of these relationships. Saudi Arabia. His views about Saudi Arabia are far more amicable. He says he's spoken to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud within the past 6 months, though he declines to elaborate the nature and frequency of their talks. Asked if he worries that increasing U.S. oil and gas production would upset the Saudis, who wish to maintain their primacy in energy, Trump replies that he does not think so, pointing once more to a personal relationship. He says, he likes me and I like him. He says of the Crown Prince, they're always going to need protection. They're not naturally protected, he says. I'd always protect them. Trump blames Biden and former President Barack Obama for eroding U.S. relations with Saudi Arabia, saying they pushed the country towards a key adversary. They're not with us anymore, Trump said. They're with China, but they don't want to be with China. They want to be with us. Ukraine. Western allies are taking extensive measures to prepare for his possible return to the White House. These include increasing defense spending, transferring control of military aid for Ukraine to NATO, racing to improve relations with Trump's advisors and affiliated think tanks, and reaching out to Republican governors and thought leaders to divine his intentions, what he's going to be doing. At a NATO summit in Washington, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, that's when Biden called him Putin, urged allies to act quickly to help his country repel Russia's invasion instead of waiting for the election results in November to decide what to do. Dan Caldwell, a policy advisor at the right-leaning think tank Defense Priorities, says that it's actually in Europe's interest to America-proof their defense and to start operating on the assumption the United States has other more urgent national security priorities and domestic ones as well. TikTok. The one exception on Trump's claim to not want to harm U.S. tech companies and to privilege domestic ones over their foreign ones is TikTok, discussing his recent embrace of the Chinese-owned social media platform, where he's already quite popular. Trump mentions that banning it in the U.S. would benefit a company and a CEO he has no desire to reward. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm for TikTok because you need competition. He says, if you don't have TikTok, you have Facebook and Instagram, and that's Zuckerberg. It's an outcome we won't abide. He's still stung by Facebook's decision to bar him indefinitely in the wake of the January 6th attacks. All of a sudden, Trump grouses, I went from number one to having nobody. Crypto. His reverse on cryptocurrency has been marked by similar dynamics. Not long ago, he criticized Bitcoin as a scam and a disaster waiting to happen. Now he says it and other cryptocurrencies should be made in the USA. He frames his about face as a practical necessity. He says if we don't do it, China's going to figure it out, and China's going to have it, or somebody else, he says. Not coincidentally, the crypto industry, spurned by the Democratic Party, brimming with cash and eager for friends in Washington, has now found its way to Trump. Thanks largely to the actions of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Biden administration has stumbled into becoming anti-crypto, says Justin Slaughter, policy director at the crypto-focused investment firm Paradigm. Given that about 20% of Democrats own crypto, their polling and its ownership skews young and non-white, this was politically unwise. Trump has moved to fill the void, declaring in a May speech that he would stop Joe Biden's crusade to crush crypto. The following month, he reaped the benefits, raising money from Bitcoin miners at a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser. Trump's campaign then announced it would build a crypto army, and it now accepts crypto contributions. This is from Bloomberg, and it's on Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.